Welcome. Today on Africa Face to Face, we're speaking to Mo Ibrahim, one of the continent's most recognizable business leaders. Through the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, he's also relentlessly been a champion for better governance and leadership across Africa. Mo, welcome to the show.
Mo, obviously, big thank you to you for joining us on this show, Face to Face. It's a show, Mo, that we conceptualized to try and create a better understood Africa, seen in the context of what Africa is in today's geopolitics.
Thank you very much. It is a good idea to have this program.
Mo, maybe the question then is an obvious one, that all the years that you have worked for Africa, right, have dialogued with global leaders, where do you think Africa is missing the plot? Somehow, the narrative still remains so negative, so dismal, so anti.
I think it's not as much as anti as ignorance and neglect. We have been in discussion with many of the news outlets, and we talked to the CNN, we talked to the BBC, we talked to the various people. As one honest journalist told me, say, look, we have 15 minutes or 30 minutes for the news, okay? When to come to Africa, if you have time, is maybe 30 seconds. So what we want to say there, what would be of interest to our people? If there is a famine, or if there is a military coup, or there's, terrorist attack, this makes news, what we call it news. But
okay,
what are you going to say about a peaceful country? I mean, it doesn't make news if there's nothing happening.
More hold that thought. So you're saying bad news sells, right? Is as Africans, why are we so defensive? Why don't we sometimes give back to the West what we get regularly? Fraud, lack of governance, corruption, vested interest are not monopolies of Africa. We see wirecards happening. We see Enrons happening. When are we going to get aggressive about it?
This is not going unpunished, actually. I mean, in the West, you can see the rise of this populist wave. I'm speaking from London, so I'm talking from the West.
Yeah.
Okay? A lot of things happening here. You have Nigel Farage here, polling more than the Prime Minister or the Conservative Party. Who would have ever thought of that? At France, we can see what's happening in France. In Germany, we see the AfD rising in that all are symptoms of the malfunctioning and failures of the democratic governments and democratic parties and the democratic forces to really deliver and explain itself to its own people. Who thought U.S. will end up being in that place? I mean, people are despondent. So I'll just offer that, the thought that maybe we should take pity on the West, actually.
Mo, I'd like to pick up on that point. It's part of a pendulum shift, right? We know that globally, the geopolitical structures are changing. Power is shifting. Do you think that that's going to make a difference, or starting to make a difference in terms of how Africa is perceived? For example, there's a lot of talk about the rise of the global South, and Africa is at the heart of that.
The whole world around us is changing. The fracture of the international order, the global institutions. We are living in a very dangerous moment, actually. And that at least put Africa in a different place, because nobody can claim much about Africa. I mean, we have a problem in Africa, of course. I mean, we are not perfect. Strong men became fashionable in Africa again. But that also is a reflection of what's happening around us. Look and see how many strong men are out there in the rest of the world. And so what is happening is the world is becoming like Africa, really. We will really ignore rule of law, will attack institutions, or we will attack civil society. So when I speak to our friends here, I say, okay, welcome.
In many ways, it's dark humor when you say that the world is getting Africanized. I think what we are probably saying, to be fair to ourselves, is that everything that we had been accused of probably always existed. It's just a case of it coming out now, right? And hopefully, therefore, there'll be a little more honesty about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing which always irked me whenever you talk to people in the West, the one issue they always talk about is corruption in Africa. And it is very strange because for each corrupt official or government minister or whatever, there is dozens of corrupt, business people in US, in China, in Europe, etc. Because there's partners to corruption. This is like adultery. You cannot commit it by yourself. You must have a partner.
It takes two.
Yeah,
it takes two to tango, right?
Exactly. Actually, in corruption, it takes more than two.
But Mo, I was watching your recent interview where you put Mr. Banga over the coal, as they call it, right? I want to show one little clip where you made a comment to the World Bank president.
We think your bank, if it's listed in any stock exchange, you'd have been delisted because your governance is no good.
So Mo, if that is the World Bank, what is the lesson for us, not just in Africa, but for the world generally?
Yeah, it needs a lot of reform. We have very aging institutions designed in a completely different world. We need really effective reform. We don't need blasters. We need surgery. And I hope that will be carried out because none of these institutions now are fit for purpose.
Mo, you have the standing, the stature, and definitely the ability to call these things out in the open. Now, do you think the powers that be are listening? And are they going to therefore be a little more pragmatic about their approach to Africa?
I think people, when they are faced with these issues, they do respond. And I know, one of the things I criticized in the issue of governance, that those guys used to have 3 board meetings every week. If you have 3 board meetings a week, this means you don't have any time to do any work. You're spending all your time doing reports. As I understood, actually, that haven't changed. And I was very pleased to hear that from him. And they now reverted to a typical sort of 1 meeting every 2 months or so, which is a great movement forward, actually. Because actually the board was also sitting in the room when I was talking to Ajay. And by the way, I like Ajay very much. He's really trying to do a good job there. And he's a businessman. He understands these issues.
But let's just move a little bit to our own failings as well. Things like Africans need to invest in Africa, right? It's not true that there is no capital in Africa, right? So where are we in Africa failing ourselves as well is a question that has to be addressed, isn't it?
Absolutely. And before I criticize anybody else, we need to criticize ourselves first. Then we earn the right to criticize others. And that's what we have been doing all the time. And we have a whole list of critique, really, for what needed to be in Africa. When you have a small country, you have Chad. Will Chad sit across the table from the European Union to negotiate a trade deal? They eat them alive. Can they sit across the table from China or United States or India or whoever?
Not at
You
all.
cannot. Because we are 54, mostly very small countries, very small economies. And negotiation is about power. And that's what's happening around us now. So the refusal of our countries to cede any sovereignty to the African Union in order to have a body negotiating in behalf of all of Africa is a big problem.
Are you saying that the AU is not being empowered to create the collective bargaining that Africa needs? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. The African Union has no authority, cannot sign any agreement, large or small, in behalf of Africa, because African countries refuse to cede any sovereignty to the African Union. And add to that, Africans don't finance their own African Union. The operating budget is the largest budget, actually. And 90% of that is paid by the European Union. Who built the African Union fantastic building in Addis?
Chinese.
Who built that?
China built it. We're always talking about we need more investment, we need more investment. We have a quote that's from an op-ed that you published in the Financial Times a few months ago, entitled Africa Must Invest Itself. Right? So it's about the decline of aid for Africa, but rather than that being some sort of cliff edge moment, it's an opportunity to rethink how we finance development on the continent. Now, I want to really zero in on this next sentence. Africans must not fear Africa. We need to start investing in ourselves. That line, Africans must not fear Africa, why use those words?
If I travel to many African countries with my British passport, for example, I don't need a visa. If I travel in my Sudanese passport, I need to wait 2 months to get a visa in some countries.
Correct.
We are afraid of each other. We need freedom of movement of people, goods, and capital across Africa.
Correct.
Look at the trade agreements we're trying to do in Africa. It's too little, too small, too slow. Look at Europe. This are huge country. A country like Germany, a country like France, a country like Austria. Those guys have big economies, but still they realize that in order to improve their economies, they need to form the European Union. The European Union was based not on any affinity or culture, or those guys don't like each other. They speak different languages.
They fought so
have
many
been
wars,
fighting each other for hundreds of years. Not only the First, Second World War. Before that, they have been always killing each other. Okay, but the economic case was very powerful.
Correct.
It's 2% of GDP is achieved by that for every country. That's every year.
Thank you very much, Mo. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Face, where we are talking to the one and only Mo Ibrahim.
I want to throw a challenge at you. Here you are.
Yeah.
You are one of the preeminent statesmen Africa has got, one of the most successful sons of the soil, right? One of the most successful. I have two comments to you. One is, how do you think civil society, philanthropy can play a role in capacity building in Africa? That's the one point. And the second point I'll make, and that's a criticism to you, Mo, is that you put up this Mo Ibrahim Foundation, but you're saving money. You're not paying those awards for the last, half the time you don't pay anybody for governance. Are you saying that we are that bad that for full year nobody deserves an award?
Yes, let me take the two questions one by one. The first one, civil society. Civil society is very important. And many countries in Africa now introduced legislation to prevent any foundation for receiving money from abroad. Most of our rulers don't like civil society, don't like to be judged, not like to be called, or not like to be criticized. Although the civil society job is not just to criticize, it's to support as well.
Correct.
But the space for civil society, you check our index, has been closing, and we keep shouting about this, has been closing over time, and civil society really is unable to move or act in many African countries. On the second question, I am not a member of the prize committee, so I have no access to what they do, what they decide, but I can understand. Those guys found it difficult to find a leader who fills the criteria. And the criteria is so simple: to come democratically, leave democratically with clean hand, no blood or dirty money. Meanwhile, you move the country forward. It's simple. I mean, that is the job of government,
But
isn't it? To move forward.
Mo, please,
Now,
allow me to ask you. Allow me to ask you. Look at that chart.
Go ahead.
4 years in a row, nobody deserves a prize. I mean, Mo, what are we saying about our own continent here?
Well, can you suggest to me somebody who could have won the prize? Give me a name. It is difficult. It's really difficult somehow for people to fulfill. In my view, what is a simple criteria? I think there's something wrong about power. Many people come with good intention, but then they end the term with a mess.
Okay. We will not embarrass you further. We will take this out from the screen.
Yeah, but no, it's a good.
Embarrassing me. You are embarrassing African leaders.
No, it
is their fault. It's not our fault.
I love that.
Yeah, look, it's a good point, right? Governance is, first of all, not exclusively an African issue. And secondly, there's been a very notable decline in governance in, the so-called developed world. So we all know that the last 10, 15, 20 years, one of the recurrent narratives about Africa has been we've seen all of this strong growth. We know that many of the world's fastest growing economies are on the continent. This is from the Governance Index in 2018, and it's quite a striking statistic that it's from 2008 to 2018. We saw a 40% increase in GDP across Africa, a remarkable achievement. But then we have this unfortunate flip side where economic opportunity for citizens has barely budged. And I want to pick up on the last line here. This is a huge missed opportunity. How do we capture that opportunity?
Okay, I think, that's a very, very important question. First, unfortunately, we have a problem with demography. The demographic growth in many African countries outpaces the economic growth. So it is exactly like you're trying to go up an escalator which is coming down. So however hard you try to go up, you are really standing still. So GDP per head is not moving. The second point also we have is inequality. Where the fruits of this growth went? It did not go equally to everybody. It was concentrated in a very small group of people. I mean, many of the conflicts we have, especially in the preference and the rural areas and the people who are completely neglected and left out, many of the armed conflicts start there, actually. And it is a recipe for disaster.
What do we have here? We have here a continent of 1.5 billion people, as you say, very young, growing, not enough opportunities. You also have a continent which has perhaps most of the solutions to the world's challenges, whether it's renewable energy, whether it's food supply, whether it's markets, whether it's critical minerals, we can carry on. Then you have the West, which has continued in its merry ways of double standards, vested interests, and of course, being indifferent unless politically it made sense. How are we going to bring these two ends together more?
Africa is a very rich continent,
Correct.
but African people are poor.
Correct.
We are poor because of our failure to effectively develop our resources, whether it's natural or human resources. Total failure. We need to stop corruption. Look, $90 billion leave Africa every year through illicit financial flows. Many African governments love to offer tax holidays. Why offer tax holidays? There's no reason. We need to attract investment. Of course, we keep blaming the rating agencies, which is, there is some truth in that, and we're having discussion with those people about
Hold that thought on the rating agency. We have a clip where you actually said something to the African governments as a wake-up call.
All African countries, all of you, 54 countries, are all sub-investment grade. All of you are junk.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's the rating agencies rating us as sub-grade, sub-investment grade. And they come to our conference, and that's good of them to be willing to discuss, to talk. And part of their assessment is objective based on facts and data. But 50% of the tick boxes are really subjective. And this is the area we are having a discussion about the thing. That's one thing. But the other thing also, we Africans also need to understand that if you don't have rule of law, if you don't have security for your people, if you don't stop these stupid wars raging around the continent, who's going to invest there? Nobody.
Can I jump in? Look, it's been a very frank and honest discussion, and I expected nothing else, to be honest, from you, Mo. But I may be clutching at straws here. But I want to ask, what makes you optimistic about Africa? What gives you optimism about the continent?
Young people, no hesitation. Young people. Look, young people in Africa today are much more educated than us. When we're at their age, they're much more educated. They know what's going around the world. They have all these magic devices in their hands. They are very well connected and able to organize. Those are the people which I hope will change and do what we, the old generation, failed to do.
Can I ask you one final question, sir? And it's a comment and a question, if I may. To me, and I know you're still very young and still very ebullient and active.
That's genius. I'm a very old man.
I call you, with due respect, sir, the grand old man of Africa, because you are that patriarch. I think you are that patriarch that the continent needs. So the question to you, sir, is all these things that we need to sort out here is one thing. How are you going to mobilize effective support, constructive support from the West or from outside of Africa?
We are very much interlinked, to be honest, and especially with Europe. Europe is very close to us, and it has a long history with us. Of course, some of it is very painful, but this fact of geography we cannot really avoid or neglect. They are our neighbors. The Europeans can be more understanding of Africa than any other people. We need to find a relationship as partners, okay? And let's forget about aid. We don't Africa to be a recipient of aid. We don't need it. We're rich. We're rich. Before we go and beg for money, let us use our own riches.
Find ways to monetize our riches.
In the basis of partnership and mutual respect.
So, Mo, are you saying therefore that Africa's future lies across the Mediterranean, not across the Atlantic or across the Indian Ocean?
No. African future lies in Africa. Okay. But we need to have good relationship with the nearest people to us, with whom we can have easy understanding. We can speak the similar languages, and we have history, and we can build that history in a correct manner. That I think something I'm trying to work on, and I do that because I cannot work with Chinese because Chinese don't work with civil society. I cannot do much. US doesn't know anything about Africa, so I better bite my tongue there. There's no point in
No, thank you.
wasting my energy. Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Mo, for being on Face to Face.
Thank you, Mo. I can't thank you enough for the usual candor that you brought. Thank you again.
Thank
Most
you.
appreciated, sir. Thank you. Oh, wow. He
Brilliant.
was in his element.
Brilliant, right? I mean, look, this is what I love about Mo. He is,
Doesn't mince words.
yeah, and here's the thing, right? He could so easily not be fighting this fight because he's done better than almost anyone has ever
That's
done
actually-
in business, right? And you can tell from the energy that comes across that, he means it. He really cares.
He really cares, and the maturity he shows. In his criticism, there is so much affection. I mean, he did it in such a suave, affectionate, loving manner.
Great show,
Hey,
Sanjeev.
thank you, Lanre. That was good stuff,
Yeah,
man.
a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for watching. That's it for the show.